Okay, you can follow keto, paleo, Whole30, maybe even 75 hard. But here's the thing. If your plan isn't sustainable, it's not going to work. And I know that that sounds really harsh and really blunt, but here's the thing. As a coach, I see this happen all of the time. People dive into these really intensive plans, mostly because they're like really excited. They're in a state of really high motivation. And so they dive into this plan that has all of these different things that they have to do right away, and it often fails. And it fails simply because we just don't know how to build those into real life yet. And when it does fail, it doesn't just wreck your physical process, but it also wrecks your mindset along the way. And that can be incredibly harmful for future attempts. And so today, and in this video, I want to share with you what I believe, hands down, is the #1 diet hack. And it's really all you need, and it's not what you think. So the truth of the matter is really nothing that you do matters, okay? And I know that that sounds really, really bad, but whether it's eating more fruits and vegetables or counting your macros, the supplements that you take, the workout that you have, if it's not something that you can see yourself sticking to long term, it's not going to work. And what's worse is it actually backfires. And when the wheels do fall off, and often they do, it's incredibly problematic because then we start telling ourselves these shitty stories and we believe that we're the problem when in reality we just kind of had a shitty plan. And so we start telling ourselves these things like, nothing I do works, I just can't stick to a plan, I have no willpower, I'm just not the type of person that can stick to things. And that belief, those stories are far more dangerous than any diet or failed diet plan. And so some of you might be sitting there and you might be thinking, oh no, like I've seen some of these plans work for people. I've seen 75 hard. I've seen some of these intensive plans really work. But what the problem is, and what we don't often see, is what happens down the road. Sure, they may deliver some short-term results, a couple weeks, a month, maybe even 3 months. But what we don't often see is what happens down the road. Over 90% of people who have these kind of short-term, rapid weight loss successes with these intensive plans gain the weight back. And in reality, the sad fact is that a lot of them not only rebound that weight gain back, but they gain a little bit more because we've maybe even done some things along the way to damage our metabolism and kind of hurt our relationship with food even more. That's an incredibly frustrating process to kind of be losing and gaining the same 10 pounds over and over again, I know. And so we fall into this cycle of weight loss and like that excitement of weight loss, and then this like doom coming of burnout, and then re-weight gain, and then kind of that terrible shitty shame story that we're telling ourselves about it. But you're not broken and you don't have shitty willpower. You just need a more sustainable plan. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So when I'm working with a client, one of the biggest factors that I like to stay close to throughout our course together is how manageable does this feel, right? That's important all throughout the course, regardless of where we are in their journey. And I will even ask people every check-in, tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how manageable does this feel for you? You know, with a 1 being like, hey, coach, the wheels are going to fall off, and a 10 being like, piece of cake, this is boring, right? And what we want really is like, I feel like anything below a 6 is kind of riding the line. Even a 6 is probably a little bit too low. And so ask yourself that question. If you are starting something new, or you are kind of getting into a new program, where would you rate that? Where would you rate that manageability? And if it's falling in a 6, we're probably borderline crash and burn. Anything below that's going to be really hard to sustain. And you might fall into that trap of, yes, it feels really good at first. We start to burn out. The wheels fall off, we gain the weight back, and then we start telling ourselves those terrible stories, and we want to avoid that. I'm a really firm believer in habit stacking, especially if you're relatively new to this and you're like, okay, I kind of want to start eating healthy, I maybe want to start exercising, but I'm just not really sure like where to start, and I don't want to bite off too much, but I want to do enough that I feel progress. Start small, like pick up 1 to 2 habits and do that for a week or two. It might be something as simple as saying like, hey, I'm gonna put food in my mouth for breakfast with a little bit of protein, and I'm gonna pack water and make sure I'm getting plenty of water. And do that. And keep repeating those two habits until they feel simple. And then add in another one. And then when that feels simple, add in another one. And yes, it can feel kind of slow at first, but over time, and it actually happens pretty quickly, you've stacked together an immense amount of habits. And in reality, what that is lifestyle change. Build those habits slowly so that they stick, so that they feel manageable. And it doesn't have to be easy. It probably won't, but it should feel doable, all right? Challenging, but manageable. That's kind of what we're looking for. And it isn't always a sexy process, right? Like it's just these little changes that we make along the way. But in reality, it's those tiny little changes that we add and put in and keep stacking in. That's actually what lifestyle change is. It's not this magic flip of the switch. And when we try to do it that way, when we tackle off things like 75 hard, where we do kind of flip this switch and try to make these massive changes, it almost always leads out to this incredibly frustrating burnout, which I just hate to see for people. So instead, slowly build in habits. We want to avoid that crash and burn. And most importantly, we want to avoid that mindset shift that happens when we do crash and burn, where we're telling ourselves these stories like, I always quit, or I never stick to a plan. And because when we say those things over and over and we continue to have experiences that prove that, we start to identify as that. And when we have that belief in our own identity, it's going to make it more and more challenging for you to develop these changes in the long term, because we believe we're not capable of. And if you believe you're not capable of achieving something, it's going to make it really hard to tackle those habits. We want to create the opposite scenario. See, like if you head into a week and you say, okay, I've got these 2 things I'm going to crush. Is it going to be hard? A little. Can I do it? Also, yes. And then you execute it and you do it. Well, then the opposite story happens. You start to build this validating proof that you are the type of person that gets shit done. And then you get more done. And then you get more done. And as you create that story shift, that identity shift, it becomes really motivating, and then the ball is rolling, and then things really start moving up with more speed from there. I have a program called the Well-Fed Way. It's kind of a self-paced program. It's a little bit different than like traditional one-on-one nutrition coaching, where the clients are moving through kind of at their own pace. They have access to me in office hours and messaging support. I still help them put together their macros and things like that. But what's really unique in this program is it's 9 weeks long, and we do just this. We layer in 1 to 2, depending on the week, little habits at a time. And along the way, we learn about why those are important. So we kind of have that motivating knowledge behind what it is that we're building each week. If you're interested in checking that out, I put a link in the description below. But regardless of where you're at, just dive in with something that feels challenging but manageable. I know it's tempting to make these massive shifts because you're ready. You have these bouts of motivation where you're like, I'm going to do this. And that motivation is real. The problem is what we don't factor in is all of the other things that we have going on in life. And we simply, most of us, just aren't designed to make a massive amount of changes all at once. Our brain doesn't work that way. We're much better at building things in slowly. That's the number one diet hack. And it can feel slow, but here's the deal. Because it's something you can stick with, it's also the fastest way. And I promise you that time is going to go by really quickly. And what feels like a really slow first couple of weeks, very quickly, you're going to be a month or 2 into doing that. And you're going to look back and you're going to be like, holy shit, look at everything that I'm doing right now. And your body's going to start to change. And the way you're thinking about things is going to start to change. And all of that is going to give you the motivation to keep moving forward. Thank you for watching this. If this resonates with you and you enjoy these, follow, like, subscribe, all of those things so that you can catch more. I also have a lot of great freebies really specifically designed for you, the person who's wanting to make some changes, maybe not quite sure where to start or how to stay motivated. Check out my website. I've got some links below. It's there for you. I've made them for you. I also really love to hear from people. Put a comment. Tell me where you're at, wins, struggles. I'd love to hear from you. Have a great day. Bye.